Comes with Cannons, Chapter 10, An Old Friend and Some New Ones. They arrived at the end of their slow journey a day later. Truth had slept very little on the train, but still had the strength and curiosity to stare out her window at the great city she had heard so much about. New York City seemed great indeed. The train went by miles of brick buildings, most of them 3 and 4 stories tall. Finally, the train stopped, letting out a last great puff of steam. The enormous station was filled with people, prosperous-looking men in tall hats and fine frock coats, and women splendid in wide crinoline skirts of bright summer colors. Their little bonnets were covered with feathers, lace, and artificial flowers that looked so real, Truth could scarcely believe that they were not real roses and violets. She saw not one black scuttle-shaped Quaker bonnet among them. Soldiers walked about too, going and coming down the various tracks to and from trains. Never had she seen so large a crowd. It frightened her. Her uncle nudged her and nodded as he pointed to the crowd. Yes, they must get off, and she must ask at a ticket window for the next train to Elmira. She got down from the train and he followed, carrying their carpet bag as they walked into the throng. And then it happened. There was a shriek from a woman and a sudden movement in the crowd, a swift parting, that left the 2 Quakers standing alone. Truth looked ahead and saw a mob of men and boys in plug hats and shabby clothes surge toward them at a run. Some brandished sticks like weapons. The big red-faced man who led them yelled to the others, "We found us a one, boys! A Quaker, a no-good Quaker who won't go fight for Abe Lincoln or nobody else. See them, lads?" Stunned, Truth stood behind her uncle, but was knocked aside into the shouting crowd. She saw Uncle Matthew fall down under a barrage of fists and feet. She tried to cry out for help, but a hand came out of nowhere to cover her mouth. A moment later, she was jerked off her feet and away from the mob as whistles began to blow. Struggling as hard as she could, trying to bite the hand and kick backward, Truth was hauled away. When her captor felt he was far enough away from the mob, he shook her and quietly said, "You know me. It's Squire. Stop fighting me." He let go. Truth whirled around to see the former slave the Bardwells had sent north twice on the Underground Railroad. He stood before her, strong, tall, and well-dressed. "Squire, please help my uncle. The police are there. Hear the whistles? What can I do against 20? Friend Quisenberry sent me word that you and your uncle were coming here, so I came to meet you. We came to get Robert out of Elmira prison." Squire gave Truth a surprised look, but said only, "Let's go look to Mr. Bardwell now." The girl and man threaded their way through the gawking crowd to the place where Matthew Bardwell lay with a bloody forehead on the station floor. His attackers had fled, and police bent over him. Squire asked one of them, "How is he?" "Bad hurt, I'm afraid." "Oh, no," wailed Truth. "Do you know this Quaker?" asked the policeman. "He's my uncle." Squire told him, "I am his friend. I'll see to it that he's taken to Quakers I know here. They'll tend to everything." Squire now took a small white card from his pocket and gave it to the policeman. "I work for this printer." The Yorker grunted. "I see it. I know your boss." Squire turned to Truth. "Stay here with your uncle. I'll fetch some friends I know, and they'll bring a wagon." "Thank you. I will." Weeping, Truth sat down, took her uncle's limp hand in hers, and held it to her cheek. They were so close to Elmira, and now this horror. A policeman stayed with her, but did not talk as she sat crying, thinking. 3/4 of an hour later, Squire and 3 men in Quaker dress strode up to her and looked down at her uncle. One of the black-clad men knelt beside Matthew Bardwell, feeling his pulse and lifting his eyelids. He finally said, "He's unconscious. This is a pity. He did not know that friends do not go about alone in this city. Come, we'll take him to my house. He'll have proper care among us. I am Dr. Porter." Truth said, "I thank thee." Then she asked, "May Squire come with us? I must talk more with him." "Yes, of course. He says thee and thy uncle are on an important mission." Truth got up now and wiped her eyes. "We are." She took a deep breath. "I will try to carry it out, without my uncle." "Thee? A girl? A child?" "Yes." She turned to Squire. "Will thee help me?" He nodded. I will, but we need to see someone else's help too. We'll go to Washington to see abolition's great friend. His name is Frederick Douglass. I think he will help you if he can. Thee knows Frederick Douglass? Asked one of the Quakers. Squire nodded again. I know the great abolitionist enough to know he's in Washington right now. Because he was once a slave himself, he may hear this girl. Truth followed behind her uncle's unconscious body as he was carried out to a black wagon. After thanking the other Quakers as they left, she climbed up into the wagon with Squire and the doctor, and off they went. Because the wagon was closed on all sides, she saw nothing of the city, and she cared to see nothing as she sat on a bench beside her uncle, who lay on a litter on the floor. As the wagon passed smoothly over paved streets, she asked Squire, "Would Mr. Douglass help us?" "I hope so. He quarreled with the president over enlisting black soldiers in the Union Army. He wanted that before Lincoln did. Finally, the president agreed, but Douglass says he still should have done it earlier. Still, Frederick Douglass has powerful friends in Washington." "I am happy to hear that," said the Quaker doctor. He asked Squire, "When will you go?" "Tomorrow morning." Tears of weariness and frustration came to Truth's eyes once more as she told the doctor, "We haven't got much money. Nobody in the South has these days. I can pay my fare to Washington, but how can I pay thee thy fee?" The doctor touched her hand. "Thee need not pay. Go to Washington, and have no fear for thy uncle. When he's well enough, we will send him home. Thee knows how." Now he turned to Squire. "Thee had best not go alone with the girl." Squire nodded in agreement. "No, my wife will be coming with us, and then we both plan to go to Liberia to live before the end of the year. We have our tickets. We want our children to be born in Africa. But first, we want to repay the Bardwells for what they did for us. I will never forget the 2 times the family helped me. I'll go to see Frederick Douglass and, if we're lucky, go to Elmira. This girl," he looked at Truth, "this brave girl and her cousin Robert can go home then." He grinned. "You have said how, Dr. Porter." The doctor smiled, then touched Truth's hand and said, "Thee must sleep at my house overnight in a good soft bed." He asked Squire, "When will thee come for her?" "At 7 in the morning. The train leaves at 8 o'clock. I've taken it before. We'll be in Washington by the evening. I'll find out where Frederick Douglass stays. It will not be difficult." He frowned. "Reaching President Lincoln will be the difficult part." Dr. Porter's brisk, fair-haired, black wife,